Welcome back, my friends. We're here talking about the PMP exam. And I know as many of you are studying, you're asking, what do I need to know? How do I bring all the information 360? So, in today's episode, I'm going to help you fine tune your focus on what to study, what to know if you are studying for the PMP exam. But we're looking at the 5 process groups and the 10 knowledge areas, but I'm going to put a spin on it. I'm going to tell you what you need to know from an agile perspective to get each one of these processes down. And I want to wager you're not going to find another video like this. So pay close attention. Okay. So in the world of Agile, you still need an Agile project charter. That doesn't go away. Instead of having a project management plan, you're going to have a product roadmap. You're going to have release plans. You're going to have iteration plans. And your iteration plans, you could also call sprint plans. When it comes to direct and manage project work, everything happens within the sprint. So you need to understand the concept of time boxing. When it comes to manage project knowledge, you're going to have a retrospective instead of that. When it comes to monitor and control project work, you're going to have burn up charts, burn down charts, and other KPIs. When it comes to performing integrated change control, well, that's what Agile is about. It's a change control framework, approach, mindset, philosophy, and closing out the project or phase. You should be able to close at any time. We don't have phases, but we have sprints, we have iterations, and we could close down an entire operation, an entire project, an entire scope of work at any time. Why? Because once we've closed out the sprint, we know it's closed, right? And then we move into the next one. We don't have stuff hanging from phase to phase like we do in the world of predictive. So it's very different. It's a clean sweep. Did it meet the definition of done? Yes or no? Going into scope, as far as having a plan for scope, the closest we have to this is having a model, an approach, a framework. So Scrum with its 353, you got to understand Scrum and the vehicle. Kanban, you got to understand the process of how Kanban works, how the flow works. And once you understand that, you have some sort of scope plan. One of the things you have in the world of Agile is a product backlog. You also have a sprint backlog. And instead of having a big old requirements traceability matrix, you have your backlogs. So product backlog for everything, sprint backlog to be more specialized. When it comes to the WBS, you have what we call PBIs, product backlog items. So your PBIs, understanding whether they're epics, feature, story, task is going to help you. But we don't necessarily call it a WBS. When it comes to defined scope, we have the definition of ready. So we talk about the INVEST acronym, independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small enough to fit within a sprint, and testable. When it comes to validate scope, we're really leveraging the definition of done. We're leveraging the understanding of acceptance criteria in each user story. So while we talk about requirements here, we actually talk about user stories, features, things of that nature. It's not to say that we don't use the word requirements in Agile, but we generally do not use that word explicitly. We could say feature, we could say story. And when it comes to controlling scope, it's pretty much done for you in that you have your product owner. So the product owner has the product backlog. We go through backlog refinement. We decide what we're going to do within the sprint, and we don't deviate from it as much as possible, right? Without the product owner and the team weighing in. So control scope is kind of a done for you in the world of agile system. You still have to work at preventing gold plating within the sprint, but once we have the guardrail set up, all you need to do is just operate it. For planned schedule management, the closest we have to this is understanding the cadence. When it comes to defining the activities, yes, we've got all of this stuff in our sprint backlog, but the individuals working as developers still have to break that down. When it comes to the dependencies, the developers will work that out together. They'll understand what needs to be done first, what needs to be done next. But as much as possible, remember the INVEST acronym. We have independent, negotiable, estimable, valuable, small enough to fit within a sprint. So the independent and small enough to fit within a sprint pretty much police a lot of this for us. When it comes to developing the schedule, we have a time box. It's not how long will it take, it's what can you fit within the time box. So it takes away the need for endless Gantt chart scheduling and so on. When it comes to control schedule, you have the KPIs that are helping you, right? You have your burn up charts, you have your burn down charts, you have your understanding of other team metrics, completed versus committed, and so on. When it comes to cost, again, we don't dwell on this excessively. Yes, when it comes to components we need to purchase, yes, we understand that. But when it comes to labor hours, we have a stable, organized, self-led, self-managed team, and that takes away the need for calculating tons and tons of hours on end. So it's not to say that we don't do cost management. We do it in a just-in-time way. So when we're closer to the period of performance and we know what needs to be bought, then we buy it. And it's a just-in-time approach as opposed to big old cost management. When it comes to control costs, yes, we still do this, but we do it on a scale down, just in time, in the sprint kind of a way. When it comes to plan quality management, this is already implicit in the world of Scrum. In the world of Scrum, we talk about the TIA, transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So it's already built into a lot of the frameworks. The concept of quality is built in. When it comes to manage quality, this is something that we do all the time. When it comes to control quality, we're always inspecting, not just inspecting at the end, but we're building it in. We talk about CI and CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment. We talk about the world of Kaizen. So all this stuff is already built into the world of Agile. When it comes to resources, again, we have a stable, organized team. We hired adults. When it comes to the beginning, this is where we actually ask the question, who do we need? And then we can build our team up. But remember, we have thresholds between 3 and 10. Scrum says 10 maximum. Some people might deviate from that, but at least you have an idea of a stable team. So when it comes to acquiring resources, it's not to say that you couldn't have new people joining the team, but it's greatly minimized because you're keeping the team together over the long haul. When it comes to develop team, we have our retrospectives. That's a great place for us to build as a team. And then we also have caves and commons. It's places in a Scrum or Agile functioning kind of a team where we identify that people need to be left alone to focus. Caves, they go into their little caves. And then commons where they're going to be together, talking, collaborating, maybe playing some pool, having a good time. And when you see these Agile teams, you just know, oh, that's an Agile team because of the artifacts they have around them, the games, the fun, the information radiators. They take away the need for endless hours of meetings and big old charts because everything is simplified, almost done for you. And then control resources when it comes to the physical resources. Again, this is something they would do in a just-in-time way. When it comes to communication, this is what we thrive on in the world of Agile. The Agile Manifesto Value says individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And it talks about the customer. Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer. So we're really big on communications. When it comes to communicating, we're doing this all the time. The 5 events, they give you ample time to do that. When we talk about the sprint review, that's where your customers take a look at what has been done. They also communicate additional things that they may need, ideas that may have come up. When we talk about the concept of the minimum viable product, that is also a way of getting feedback, which is communications. When it talks about monitor communications, we're doing this all the time, and we're elevating the understanding of how well we're doing in a retrospective. We're not shying away. We have this Agile Vegas. So when it comes to resources and communications, they're working hand in hand for the team's benefit all throughout. Now, risk is an area that is not talked about enough. But from a product owner perspective, from a Scrum Master perspective, you want to catch that risk before it becomes an impediment. An impediment is the risk has graduated. We don't want those risks to graduate, right? So a risk is really an impediment waiting to happen. It's disaster waiting to happen. So we should still be identifying as a Scrum Master things that could potentially go wrong and as a team. And those need to be elevated, escalated, and handled accordingly. So all of this great stuff that we do, we may not have a full-blown 1 to 10 scale for probability and impact, but even if it's a scale of 1 to 3, as Roy and I teach in the class, we at least want you to have that mindedness that this doesn't go away in the world of Agile. We should still be keeping an eye on risks. We should still be prioritizing the risks as far as which ones are we going to go after. And we call that concept a risk adjusted backlog. There's also something we call risk based spikes. So we always want to be taking a look at our backlog and saying, where could risk come out to bite us? Where could these risks become issues or impediments or obstacles and blockers? And you already know that in this world, impediments obstacles and blockers are very well managed by the Scrum Master or the servant leader. That's the way at least it should be. Going into procurement, we don't dwell on this, but in the world of Agile, especially in the Agile Practice Guide, we have the concept of the procurement aspects, flexible contract types. This is on page 77. So I'll just read very quickly the top of the waves, page 77 in the Agile Practice Guide for those of you getting ready. So it says procurements and contracts. As mentioned earlier in the Agile Practice Guide, the Agile Manifesto values customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Many project failures stem from breakdowns in customer-supplier relationships, so they recommend techniques that can formalize a dynamic approach to shared risk-reward relationships. Multi-tiered structure is number one. Rather than formalizing an entire contracting relationship in a single document, project parties can achieve more flexibility by describing different aspects in different documents. Mostly fixed items, warranties, arbitration can be locked in a master agreement. Meanwhile, all parties list other agreements subject to change, service rates, product description, so on and so forth. It makes it flexible. Then we have emphasize value delivered. Many vendor relationships are governed by fixed milestones or phase gates, focused on intermediate artifacts rather than a full deliverable or incremental business value. Often these controls limit the use of feedback. We have fixed price increments. We have not to exceed time and materials. We have graduated time and materials, which offers a shared financial risk approach. These are very customized to the world of Agile. We have an early cancellation option, and my favorite, which is a dynamic scope option. Throw something out, bring something of comparable size in, and team augmentation. So the way we think about the world of procurement, you can get this from page 77 in the Agile Practice Guide. Finally, stakeholder. What more can we say? Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable product. So it's not to say we don't do these. We just don't call them out as such. But of course, we identify our stakeholders. And this is a job of the product owner to know those who will be affected by the product. The team could also be working on this as well, keeping a keen eye on who could be an end user, bringing them to the right discussions and interfaces. A lot of people don't realize that the product backlog didn't get here magically, right? The product backlog got here as a result of the stakeholders and the customers sitting down with the product owner and maybe some of the development team and writing these user stories, coming up with epics and features. And that's what makes its way into the backlog. So when we talk about planning the stakeholder engagement and engaging the stakeholders, vehicles such as story writing workshops and so on come into play, product road mapping. A lot of stuff happens before the team comes in, especially the visioning, the product road mapping, and then we get into release planning, iteration planning. These are all vehicles for the customers and stakeholders to come in. And you always want to be looking in the rearview mirror and saying what is working well, what isn't working well with the stakeholders. And that's why we have the sprint reviews for them to give us feedback. And we also have the retrospectives where we look in the rearview mirror. And with that said, you got to remember the most popular framework in the world of Agile is Scrum. So everything here on the screen, I want to wager that in one way or another, customized or something else, we attack all this stuff. We just do it differently. We don't call it the same stuff. Some we might, but we look at this differently, but we still, as you have seen, get it all done. And that's the world of Agile. That is how I want you to think about what am I doing in the world of predictive and how does it equate into the world of Agile? This is how I want you to be thinking for the exam. So I hope you found this to be useful. To get the book or the audiobooks in the series, we've got books on hybrid and agile, a book on predictive, a learning system. Go on down to hybridprojectmanagement.com and check out the information there. I wish you all the best on your test. Smash the like button. I'll see you in the next video.